So there's an odd, I mean, I'm just trying to think about it because I think you're right. It feels kind of pastoral, but it almost feels, I don't want to just keep putting dark in front of every concept, but it feels like a dark pastoral, or it feels almost like, I mean, it feels like you get there and you're kind of, um, you've been through so much, especially like being on high alert through so much of the game that even though, I mean, as you know, that boss in there that you kind of have to go down to the bottom and find and kill is probably the most difficult or one of the most difficult bosses in the entire game. It almost feels like you're kind of in a daze when you're in. Like so there's a sense where it's comfy or whatever, but there's also a sense where it feels like I'm already dead or something, or it feels like I'm like, hallucinating this entire area, and therefore there is something still kind of unsettling about it. I don't know, that's how I'm kind of thinking about it now. It feels like almost like if you had this is a weird connection, but I was just, recently listening to a bunch of Nine Inch Nails. And the album The Downward Spiral, which is like an incredibly dark album that's, largely about addiction and self-destruction and all this stuff, has all these really intense songs with like just really heavy, like loud, distorted guitars and everything. But then it ends with the song Hurt, which is like the kind of ballad, right? So it's the very final song that's supposed to be this cycle of you know, the song before, I'm pretty sure, essentially ends with like the speaker killing himself. And then it ends with a song that's just this kind of pretty beautiful, really dark song that almost feels like it feels like ebbing water or something like that. Like it has this kind of odd, um, and I wonder if it's a denouement or if it's something else because it almost like doesn't necessarily tie things together. I guess it depends on how you look at it.
Yeah, the idea just to think of again schematically, whatever or abstractly, like artworks, sequential artworks, film, games, novels, and music, where the final bit there's a kind of beautiful epilogue in a sort of patently non-beautiful work. Is actually it's a really cool category to think through. I'll throw out two more just to add them to the conversation. The album Yeezus by Kanye West, which I texted you about the other day, the line from the final song. But that's another case of like it's like the album dies and goes to heaven or whatever, and then you
Mhm.
have like the original Kanye, like college dropout Kanye with like
Yeah.
sweet samples and yeah, it's just like a really joyous song in its way. The In Paradisum movement of Fauré's Requiem. I don't know if you know that. It's like my favorite Requiem. An incredible piece of choral music. But it's really, really dark in a lot of ways and sort of churning, and tempestuous. And then the final movement is like sublimely sweet and placid, almost to the point of being saccharine. But it works so well because of how powerful a contrast it is with the rest of the Requiem. Um, so I think I would say the Old Hunters, and particularly the Fishing Hamlet, has a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I would call it beautiful. Whereas, I guess maybe it's like the sublime and the beautiful, whereas the rest of Bloodborne is sublime, if it's anything. Um, and that's also to do in kind of Burkean terms, I guess, with its small scale, its sort of intimate delicacy, of this very curated little fishing village. Again, this is I'm kind of free associating here, but just to underscore this point, there is something I do. I always did this with Elder Scrolls avatars. I would sort of retire them, and when I retired them, I would like put them in a place that I wanted them to be. So I would like hike my Skyrim guy up to the top of a mountain and wait for the sunset, and then save the game, and you get the little screen grab in your save file, and I would just be like, okay, that's the end of that file, and he's just like up the mountain looking at the sunset or whatever.
Yeah.
And literally, like I feel like I like to bring my Bloodborne avatars to the beach, or to the coast or whatever, like the Orphan of Coast, partly just as bragging rights, to be like this file completed, because you can't get that lantern without beating the Orphan of Coast. But also, I'm literally just sending my hunters to the beach to like for a much deserved rest after I complete their files.
Yeah.
I've said this podcast before. I don't do New Game Plus because I think it screws with the balance, and it's just not. I'd always just rather do a new file. So, um, I have at least one, maybe multiple Bloodborne avatar saves, just like right at the beach. You know, it's like they're going to Florida or something.
Yeah.